With the countdown towards the first season of the Trackmania Grand League Challengers well and truly underway, we're continuing our round of interviews with some of the competitors from this inaugural season of the Challengers division. My guest today is one of only two players to come from across the pond and across the Atlantic, should I say, rather, from North America. He's participated in the Open Grand League Winter 2021, managing to get a spot in the final. He's also participated in the ZRT Cup Trio in 2021 and also most recently, on September 4th and 5th, participated in the North American Open, finishing on the podium. That man is none other than Nixotica, who will be playing for Loud Esport for this inaugural season of the Challengers. So, Nixotica, welcome on the channel. Thank you very much for allowing me to take a few minutes of your time so that you can answer a few questions. And the first one I'm going to ask is, how are you doing and how is life going over in Michigan?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I really don't have interview experience, but I'm glad you invited me on. It's going really good. Just enjoying training the maps, getting a little bit more of a intense focus on the TMGL maps this season. I'm enjoying it, and yeah, it's just nice.
Yeah, just nice to finally have something to work towards and have a competition season kicking off yet again.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest with you, your name kind of cropped up for me at the start of towards last year. I think if I recall correctly, did you participate in the PK Arc like Pittsburgh Knights circuit?
I didn't participate, but I ended up making a map for it. That
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
you're right. You were the
yeah,
winner of the mapping contest. That's right. That's how I
yeah.
heard of your name first of all. And really, you kind of your name started cropping up a little bit more for the scene in 2021 with said Open Grand League and also the ZRT. But for there are many people that are looking to learn maybe a little bit more about you. So I'm just gonna ask you to introduce yourself. How long have you been playing the game, and what was your main starting point in the competitive Trackmania scene?
All right, yeah. So I started playing the game back in 2007, obviously very casually because I was 7 years old at that point. Um, I mostly played the game casually up until I found the dirt scene in around 2015. But even then, it wasn't really a focus on being a highly skilled competitive player. It was just, enjoying myself. But
Yeah.
TM 2020 rolled around, and then I really wanted to get into the competitive scene a lot more. So that's when I started, dedicating a lot more time into the bigger competitions and trying to put my best foot forward like that.
All right, so yeah, you have a pretty long history with the game, even though you said yourself it was more casual play. Yeah, and I kind of get that maybe a brand new release will sparks a little bit the competitive edge in there, and that's when you started to get implicated. I totally get that. So on this year in 2021, I said it in the intro, you participated in the Open Grand League, managed to finish 20th overall in the regular season with 47,000 points. And what's amazing to me is that you managed to do that without making a single step into Challenger Division. It was two-step wins in the bag in gold and no lower than third at any time, which allowed you to get that placing. So yeah, you managed to take part in the final, and then that was that. And then afterwards, you didn't participate in the World Cup. We actually talked about it off camera just to make sure that I did get my facts straight. But then during the summer, you participated in the ZRT this year in trio mode with Team Red, White, and Boost alongside Snowman and Fegley. And you guys went all the way to round four. After that, I'm assuming you took a break in the summer, which is totally understandable. And then at the beginning of this month, in September 4th and 5th, you took part in the North American Open, where you managed to get a podium finish just behind Fegley and Carl Jr., which is whenever you see that name pop around, at least for me, it's kind of like a rap for whoever wins when you just see CJ, the three initial CJ, you're like, oh god. But I wanted to ask you, how do you feel? How would you rate yourself for this year so far in terms of competitive results? And how is your general feeling on the game? How does it feel for you to play the game in 2021?
Yeah, in 2021, it's always been ups and downs as far as like I see the game growing and I know that it's going to get, better and bigger in the
Mm-hmm.
competitive scene and I'd like to grow with it. And I felt myself get better as time is going on, mostly because I put a lot more time into the game now. It's pretty much all I do in my free time. Um, and yeah, it's just something that I really feel like is worth dedicating some time to because it's something that's been, part of my life for the majority of it. And I have a lot of hope for this coming season. And it's really just uh, despite whatever the outcome is, I think, putting myself out there and being a face for, or at least one of the faces of the United States in Trackmania has really been quite the experience for me in the past couple of years.
Yeah, you. I'm assuming you're kind of taking all this as kind of a learning experience as well, given that you're fairly recent in the serious competitive scene in Trackmania. As you said, with the release of the new game, you're really starting to get involved in there, and yeah, it's. I can totally get also the feeling that being one of the representatives of the American scene in Trackmania is quite something indeed. Speaking of the American scene, so as I said, you're one of two players to actually come from across the pond and compete against a really Europeanized, really mostly European field. Your other compatriot is Fegley, which I will get the opportunity to interview soon. And I kind of want to ask this to you as well as to Fegley in my other interview. How do you feel? What is your opinion on the state of the NA Trackmania scene at the moment in terms of awareness of the competitive side of Trackmania? How does it stack up versus EU? Well, I kind of know. I have a rough guess of what it could be, but want to know your opinion on that, and also if there you feel there's any improvement potentially coming in to the scene at that point.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of hope for the American scene because behind the scenes, I think around last year when the game came out, there was a lot of talk about making a United States or North America Discord that was specifically for the Trackmania scene, and a
Yep.
ton of people have joined that. There was a lot of small events organized, like just fun cups for North American players. But
Hmm.
then recently, we had the Trackmania American Open, which had a shockingly large amount of people putting a lot of effort into it, and a lot of new faces as well who came into the scene from that cup. And I think more stuff like that is bound to happen in the future, and it really gives a lot of hope to me that we're going to have a lot of people who will rise up in the North American scene and maybe be able to compete on a higher level. But currently, I don't think it is, even with myself and Fegley. Um, we are not at the same level as, you know, some of the others on the field at our level, but it's a first step, I think, in people realizing that it's possible to be a professional or semi-professional Trackmania player from North America.
Okay, yeah, I totally see where you're coming from. I actually seen some of the rounds from the North American Open, and that was really awesome. It also kind of gave me hope as well, and I was like, yeah, that is the start of something really good for the NA scene, and I'm also looking forward to talent coming from North America or coming from the Americas in general to actually come over and try out the game, and also try to potentially step up and bring a bit more level and a bit more competition in the field that we have right now. So before we attack the challenger season, I asked pretty much everyone about this. Around a week ago, we had a tweet from the Trackmania account that will have a rework of the acceleration penalty coming in on October 1st. We also had a few tweets with a few videos from Darek showing the old calculation versus the new calculation, what kind of effect it has. And I kind of want to have your opinion about it. Pretty sure you have a pretty good opinion about it, given that it was one of the things that most players have been complaining about. But yeah, how do you view that change coming in with the new fall campaign as well, making potentially a big difference in terms of hunting? Well, not existing maps, but brand new maps. And do you feel it will have an impact in terms of hunting the Grand League maps? Because we have a totally different, totally different calculations in the midst of training for the first step. And I kind of wonder what your opinion is on this kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely do have some strong opinions, maybe some controversial opinions about it. So looking at it, it looks like a good step in the right direction for acceleration penalty.
Hmm.
It seems more fair that it's going to be something that, you know, punishes players more accurately or accordingly to hitting a
Yes.
wall. But I also think it is kind of indicative of something that Deo does a lot, where they kind of half listen to the community, where the community says one thing and they will bring a sort of compromise in between that nobody has suggested or really thought of, which can kind of be a little bit jarring, I think. And another example of that might be like the change in the relegation system for the TMGLC.
Mm-hmm.
When they initially announced that only 7 people could get in through the TMGLO, there was a big backlash,
Yeah,
kind of seeing that they were,
the region lock rule indeed. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of French players obviously were upset because they're going to be the ones most affected by it for sure. And then, they changed it and it kind of, people stop talking about it, but when you look at the new rules, there's still plenty of opportunity for, French players who want to get into the TMGLC to possibly get, screwed out of a position.
Mm.
And that's like the acceleration penalty in my mind, where we have um, different, um, just a solution that nobody has thought of, that's not necessarily a complete solution, but it's just something that will make it slightly better. So that's how I see the acceleration penalty, is just it's slightly better, but it's not something that I think all of us would have wanted if it was presented to us as is.
Yeah, but when you take into account also the will of Nadeo that they want to keep the penalty in there as a kind of an enforcement against wall banks, because in the old game, wall banks were banned, for instance, in the Grand League Winter 2020 season, but there was no way that it could be strictly enforced. Be strictly enforced, that you have referees, and I'm guessing that I'm totally judging by that, but it was their solution to have that systematically enforced and have that sort of behavior penalize the player. But yeah, I think it's a sort of, in my opinion, it's a sort of good compromise, but yeah, it's still a compromise nonetheless. But with that topic out of the way, let's get stuck into the Challenger season. So, same format, same calendar as TMGL. You guys just started a little bit earlier. So, you're starting at 6 p.m. CST, which, if my time zones are correct, that would mean 11 a.m. for you over in
Uh,
Michigan.
12 o'clock, I
12
think,
o'clock. Oh, you're on
for
Eastern time?
most of the steps.
You're on Eastern time? I thought you were on
Yeah,
CET. Okay, so
Michigan is on that border.
yeah, yeah. You're one of two. You're one of the few states who ride like two separate time zones. So yeah, it really does depend
Yeah.
on which city you are. But yeah, so you're starting at midday. You're starting at noon basically. And yeah, we also have a pretty strong field overall. When you look at the names, I mean, you got people like Evon, you got Link, you got Mime, you got Revel, Razi. You also got Energize, and so on and so forth. How do you approach the season, and how do you approach step one? With around a month to go of practice, and also, have you set yourself any targets? And if so, which are those targets for this season?
Yeah, so I mean, my target initially is obviously just to stick around for the next season.
Survive,
Um,
basically.
yeah, which means, just stay in the top 12,
Mm-hmm.
preferably top 8, obviously. But if I have to defend myself in those ninth to 12th slots, I'll prepare my best for it. And, looking at the maps, I feel okay about it. I know that the maps this season feel very difficult, very technical. And I think that'll provide a lot of opportunity to try to use some, consistency to my advantage, maybe driving slightly slower paces, but maybe if I can drive better, that's the hope, to just stay in and, you know, provide myself some time to just get better at the game throughout the season.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we kind of treaded on the map topic as well. Yeah, maps do seem a lot more difficult, and also also fairly longer than what we had in the previous season. In the previous season, where we were hovering around the 1 minute 10 mark per lap maximum.
Mhm.
Here we're more hovering around the kind of like 120, 130, at least from what I could run. But I'm a bit of a pleb myself, so maybe I'm running a bit slow. But yeah, I've seen you train, like discover the maps yourself. I kind of know that you're not really a fan of the fact that we have, for instance, remakes of the beta season maps, which I kind of understand where you're coming from. But overall, aside from that, overall, how do you view the map pack itself as a general feel? You said more difficult, but in what way?
I think a lot of the maps, so obviously the Papuet map, that has a very difficult identity. You have to like weave through around some holes and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, with the last map, you have to weave around some pipes. It seems like a lot of these maps have some very difficult identities that require a lot of precision.
Mm,
The Banano map, which is famously known for like 5 flips per lap or something. Um, so it's very, I think it's going to be very chaotic for people to try to get 6 laps in a row of doing those things perfectly.
mm-hmm.
Um, and that's different from, last season where we had some more technical identities. There's no ice this time. Whereas like last season, if you knew ice, maps like slalom, which were famously known for being difficult, were actually relatively easy because you
Yeah.
learned a very solid mechanic. Whereas now you have to just be very good at, precision and stuff like that.
Yeah, a little bit less variety in this opening map pack. With in terms of, well, we see still retain a little bit of dirt on there. We retain a little bit of grass on there, but yeah, ice completely is almost absent in there. There's like one patch of ice from like what I've seen in the a few patches of ice I've seen in Eurosky, but that was it. And yeah, it's more or less you said it yourself. It's less about knowing a particular surface well or a particular driving style well. It's just being good at precision. It's all about that. And yeah, the last two maps, so Popwet's map on the edge and Pole Party, which is map 5 for the first step, is a great example of this. Final question for me before we wrap this up. So as I said, we have a pretty strong field overall this season, and well, you got one other man coming from the USA, so I know maybe will be your biggest rival this season, but I kind of want to know if you might be contending with other people at some point, or if also if terms of the field overall, who do you feel will be the standout player that will be separating from the rest and be at the top of the season?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, Fegley is my number one competitor here. He's also kind of my training partner, I feel
Yeah, I
like,
kind of
because
figured.
we're able to talk. But as far as like the number one competitor, I mean, I'm looking at the list right now, and it's just stacked. Uh, but I feel like the people who've shown the most promise are for sure going to be like Evon, Dofalt, and Solja. Those are my three picks
All right.
because they all just have like different different wheelhouses of where they showed their strengths. But I think that they all really have a good shot. Like Dofalt was great at the normal steps last season. I think he
Mm-hmm.
came first in the OGL. Um, and of course, Solja was didn't quite make it to the TMGL because he was knocked out by Binks, but his pace was really good on two lappers. So I think he'll be able to get a lot of the multipliers in map 5. And then Evon has just probably got kind of a fire in him where
Yeah.
he's had a lot of these opportunities to do well and had one way or another he's gotten kind of kicked down. So I think we'll probably see something really big from him
All
this
right.
season.
Yeah, that is very true of Evon. One actually, I completely omitted one question before we went to that, and yeah, that was about the format that we had seen on August 4th with the first draft of the rulebook that was released, with the switch from points losses and six lappers to four six lappers and multiplier round. What do you make of this particular format compared first of all compared to the one from the previous season? Then do you think it suits you more or less than the previous format? And if there is any improvement that you feel could be made, where do you think it could be made?
Yeah, I think the format is definitely more interesting. It's a little bit more fair. I'm saying that as someone who doesn't think it's going to suit me that well because I'm not quite a risky, speedy player.
Mm-hmm.
I was suited much better for the, six lapper, just try to get top 8, keep your points format. Um, but I think we'll definitely see a lot of strategy when it comes to, some of the better players I anticipate are going to just be skipping those first rounds, and maybe some of the slower players who probably have fewer points going into map 5 are going to be, just trying to scrap up those 2 times multipliers in the first couple of rounds. Um, and I know that's probably going to be my tactic as well, is to just try to get a multiplier in there. But yeah, I think it'll definitely be for the show factor, one of the more interesting things that we've seen in TMGL.
Yeah, that is a fair assessment, and yeah, I reckon that that's going to be the strategy of many of the bottom runners of the, be it in TMGL or TMGLC, trying to go for a multiplier at all costs. Like you still get a 1x, you still get to keep your score if you don't manage to win a round, but it's definitely better if you can actually get away with like a doubling or of the score or a tripling if you're a little bit lucky, if feeling a little bit lucky, but yeah, that's definitely going to be a few difference of tactics there, depending on how a player is feeling and what kind of risk they're willing to take to go for these later multipliers. So I think that covers pretty much everything I wanted to ask you, and I'm just going to leave you with a few final words. Where can people follow you, for instance, on social media, on Twitch, and where are they going to be able to following you if they will be in the TMGL Challengers?
Yeah, so I'm Nixotica on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, everything. Just that's my handle, Nixotica. I'm gonna be, obviously trying to stream some of my practice, try to get better at the game, and I'll definitely probably post some controversial Trackmania takes on my Twitter. So if you feel like following that, there you go. Yeah, that's all I have really.
Everybody loves some good hot takes at some points. But yeah,
Yeah,
thank you very much for coming in, Nixotica. Thank you very much to you guys for watching. If you want to keep up to date with whenever I release a new interview or whenever I go into casting, ask TMG Geek on Twitter. Make sure to leave a follow there. And make sure to mark the date. First step of the Trackmania Grand League Challengers is on October 17th at 6 p.m. CET. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, goodbye.